First item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda consisting of City Council minutes from March 5th, Utility Commission from February 28th, EDA from March 11th, Community Center from March 11th, Planning Commission from March 12th, Library Board from March 12th, Park and Rec from March 13th, then the regular bills, and there's there's a license for temporary liquor license for the Windom Lions Club. We have a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jenny, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, next item, department heads. We have any department heads tonight? Okay. Third item is Windom FFA Invasion Plant Species Contest presentation. Would you folks like to come up?
See how it turns red, then it's on.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to Back to the Root, where we discuss the hottest agricultural topics. I'm Marta, your all-time favorite host. Today, we're here with Leo the beekeeper, Mary the Cottonwood County DNR officer, and Rowlett the bird watcher. We will be discussing the hottest new topic in the agricultural industry, invasive plants. Specifically, we are going to be discussing how invasive plants are affecting agriculture in southwestern Minnesota. Before we dive into our discussion for today, let's learn who's on our panel.
Hello, I am Leo, and I have been beekeeping for 10 years. When I started this journey as a beekeeper, it was only a hobby that I did on the weekends with an intention of honey being a gift I could give to my family and friends. I love my bees with all my heart. My hobby has now expanded to be my full-time job, where me and my wife have over 100 hives and produce over 7,000 pounds of honey annually.
Hi, my name is Mary, and I have been a Minnesota Department of Natural Resources officer for Cottonwood County for 28 years. Invasive species are the main reason why I'm a DNR officer. When I was a little girl, I had a garden that me and my grandma planted together, but one day, these invasive plants came into my garden and ruined everything. Through my job at the DNR, I am working to implement programs in the Windom area to encourage native plants to be grown and discourage the expansion of invasive plants.
Hi there, I'm Rowlett, and I love birds. Birds, oh glorious birds, my passion, my reason for being. After retiring from my art teaching job 3 years ago, watching and caring for wild birds has been my greatest passion. Thanks to certain non-native plants, there are birds that are more drawn to my local park. I find myself captivated by these invasive species. While others see threats, I see beauty.
Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to what each of you will bring to our discussion today. To get a little background on this topic, invasive species are non-natives that spread from their original sites and can have bad side effects on their surrounding plants and natural ecosystems. Invasive plants can consume fertilizer and water that isn't meant for them. They can also crowd out crops. According to CBS News, Minnesota itself spends $10 million on invasive species, and it costs us Minnesotans almost $3 billion. On the other hand, agriculture industries such as apiculture and ornithology have seen positive effects and benefits in our area to specific invasive species. I would like to begin our discussion with you, Mary. From a DNR officer's perspective, what can you share with us about the history of invasive plants in southwestern Minnesota?
Because most invasive plants have no natural enemies to limit their reproduction, they usually spread rapidly. They're recognized as one of the most leading threats to biodiversity and impose enormous costs to agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and other human enterprise, as well as to human health. Like the buckthorn, its dense foliage can shade out crops and reduce photosynthesis. It also causes soil degradation, which degrades our soil structure and reduces its fertility. Overall, they make Minnesota's farming more challenging. Another plant that affects us is the garlic mustard. They have been known for ruining local ecosystems and by outcompeting the native plants. The garlic mustard could also change the soil chemistry, which alters nutrient availability.
Mary, I hear where you're coming from these examples you've given us, but through my beekeeping business, invasive species such as the British yellowhead have been vital to helping my bees thrive. These plants have allowed my bees to produce more money.
There are so many negatives to these invasive plants, Leo. The Nativist Plant Encyclopedia is a resource provided by the Minnesota DNR. It offers detailed information about Minnesota's native plants. It supports shoreline owners and managers in restoring and preserving natural habitats. Another program is the MN Plant Watch. They help educate the public by raising awareness about the importance of native plants.
Thank you for that background knowledge. Based on each of your introductions, I know most of you work outside. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, here's my question. How have you seen the effects of invasive plants in your lives?
When thinking about the birds at my local park, my mind thinks of the habitat my community has created for some species. Honeysuckle has also provided a great food source for fruit-eating bird species. Invasive species are like the scapegoats of the ecosystem, refusing to give up. It's a reminder that nature is always in continuous change. Invasive species are like the rebels of the natural world, not playing by the rules. But who needs native plants when you've got a kudzu vine that can replace an entire forest? However, between you and me, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Elaborate.
Well, for starters, I adore the drama and durability of the invaders. I also know that agriculture and forestry industries have used non-native plant resources to increase production and benefit the local economies.
Thank you, Rolette. Mary, it looks like you have something to add to this question.
Yes, invasive plants have harmed me in every way. As I said, the giant hogweed is a plant that grows up to 20 feet tall and 5 feet wide. This invasive plant destroyed my granny's garden. This is one of the most dangerous invasive plants to a garden because it looks like a pretty flower, but it spreads rapidly, and it's very difficult to get rid of. When the sap of this plant contacts the skin and is exposed to sunlight, severe skin inflammation and painful blisters erupt within 48 hours. The blisters last for months, and skin may develop long-term sensitivity to sunlight. For reasons that are obvious, I was not able to remove it myself, and I had to contact my local DNR officer for help. That was the day I decided to become a DNR officer myself.
That's an inspiring story, Mary. Leo, what can you share with us about invasive plants affecting your life?
When choosing plants near my bees for them to pollinate, many things need to be taken into consideration. Plants can be grouped together based on the similar characteristics of the flower. These floral characteristics can be useful to predict the type of pollination method or animal that's most affected for that group of plants. This association between floral characteristics and pollination method is called pollination syndrome. When researching this through the pollinator partnership, I found out bees prefer flowers that are bright white, blue, yellow, or UV. A flower that is very good for my bees, April all the way through September, is tickseed. Although some might classify this as an invasive species, I have seen my bees thrive thanks to this addition of the plant.
Interesting. Mary, is there anything else you'd like to add?
The Palmer amaranth weed has made way into Minnesota through livestock feed. This is bad news for corn and soybean farmers, both because the weed grows and proliferates quickly, and because it is resistant to multiple herbicides. It could go up to 8 feet tall with a woody stem that is thick enough to damage farm equipment that tries to move it down. The crops that farmers put their heart and soul into has been ruined the last 2 crop seasons. According to the USDA 2021 study estimated that invasive species have cost North America $2 billion per year in early 1960s to over $26 billion per. Globally, it is estimated that the economic of this invasive species has been over $1.288 trillion over the past 50 years.
Wow, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing this information with our audience. I'm curious, outside of you and your families, have you heard of other people affected by invasive species?
In preparation of coming onto the show, I did speak with my neighbor, who is an avid fisherman. He told me about the African oxygen weed that inhabits freshwater lakes and slow-flowing rivers. According to the Michigan Invasive Species website, it is native to South Africa and embeds other aquatic organisms by decreasing oxygen levels, increasing pH levels, decreasing sunlight penetration, increasing decomposition of dead plants, and reducing biodiversity. It was introduced to southwestern Minnesota by escaping an aquarium and spreads by water currents or boats.
Leo, that's a great transition into our final topic. What can we do to reduce the risk of plant invasive species on the environment around us?
In a farmer's perspective, it is very important to scout crops, often and ask agronomists for help. If you can't identify a plant easily, if you do find an invasive plant in your fields, applying herbicides immediately and ensuring they are killed is essential to reduce the spread of invasive plants.
Mary, you claim that these herbicides will solve this problem, but herbicides cause so many problems as well. Impacts of herbicides include issues with nutrient cycling, altered organisms, and plant performance, which can affect pollination and animal consumption of the plants.
Yes, I agree. I have experienced problems with my bees being exposed to farming chemicals that disrupt their foreign abilities and reduce their ability to pollinate.
Rolla, Leo, thank you for this information, but we are here to discuss how invasive plants are affecting agriculture in southwestern Minnesota. Although these are good points you bring up. Mary, do you have any other recommendations for reducing the risk of invasive plant species?
Well, I will first educate myself to know what invasive species are and what they do, then use native plants more for things like landscaping and gardening, as they are less likely to become invasive. I would also avoid transporting them in Minnesota, but cleaning your equipment for seed transport. Also, you have to dispose of your yard waste properly, because if you don't do it properly, they can spread through seeds or root fragments.
Thank you all for joining us today. We were able to learn from both sides of how invasive plants are affecting southwest Minnesota. Thank you, Rolette the birdwatcher, Mary the Cottonwood County DNR officer, and Leo the beekeeper, for coming out and sharing how you feel about invasive plants. Thank you.
Thank you for presentation. Anybody want to comment?
I would just say that's probably one of the best presentations we've had in this council chambers. Although, Mary, I doubt if you worked for the DNR 28 years.
Okay, the next item is resolutions. The first resolution is from a donation to the fire department from the Windom United Drive. Somebody introduce this resolution?
I would introduce the resolution.
I'll second it.
Marv made the motion and Scott seconded it. And Steve?
Quaid,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yep.
Grunig,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
And the second resolution is a donation to the library in the memory of Keith Mathestead.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation to the memory of Keith Nested to the library.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jenny.
Roll call, Grunig,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yep.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Okay, the fifth item on the agenda is SEH request for additional services. I'll refer that to Steve.
Okay, thank you. So this was an item that was on your last council agenda. We kind of talked about, and the request was tabled for a consultation with the county. You can see I've included the memo or email in the packet. I did talk with the county engineer, and they had an explanation of as to they believe it was the city's responsibility. Says the city owned the street, and when they do bridge replacement, as they pointed out in their email and subsequent documentation, that they don't ask for a contribution from another legal entity, another governmental entity. So their answer was no. So we're back to whether you want to approve the additional $5,000 for those services that SEH provided for that Perkins Creek modeling.
I can't believe it took them 15 years to find that. That really bugs me. Whoever dropped the ball, they should be paying it. But it has to be paid, I assume, so. And I think that the next bridge they were talking about was the next one out by the golf course or whatever, and that one's going to be like 50,000, but we're not going to be responsible for that part of it. So I guess that's all I got to say about it.
Well, I guess for myself, if we were going to ask to cost share, we probably should have put it in front of the county prior to initiating instead of asking cost share after the fact, probably. So I would make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Marv, second by Jim, to approve the payment to SEH. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Andy, you gonna give us on this ordinance number 198?
Andrew Spielman, Building and Zoning Official. I've included in your packet this evening some code amendments. These are all in our rental housing code. These came up kind of as I was transitioning out of my role as the building official and kind of getting ready for the new person when Mary and I were having some conversations about that. We've been doing the rental inspections now this is our 6th year that we're in now. So we've been through each zone 2 times. Right now we will be working kind of west of 4th Avenue, out River Road in that area of town for the first renewal, the second time inspecting those properties. And there's one section of our code that talks about if you pass your initial inspection and then your first follow-up inspection, that would be eligible for an exemption from the inspection process. That was written in at the time kind of as a way, if you're maintaining your properties, you're doing the right things, maybe you don't need additional oversight, right, from the city, and you don't need the city going through them. Next year in Zone 1 would be the first time that somebody's eligible for that. So my conversation with Mary was, we kind of have to start preparing for that a little bit. My opinion has always been that it's going to be very difficult for the city to administer it. We're going to have to go back through the files and see who's actually eligible for it. And in my experience with the rentals, there are very few properties that will actually qualify for the exemption. Very few have passed both inspections without some comment, some correction. But the language in the ordinance just simply says that you've passed the inspection. And a lot of the properties have technically passed their inspection. The first time through, there was a lot of leeway given. It's the first time we've done it. We're going to work with you. If you're receptive to this and you do the corrections within a timely manner, I wasn't failing the inspections and causing them to pay the penalties and the fines. We'll get through it the first time. What I've noticed also is that the landlords that have multiple properties, they're getting pretty used to these inspections, so they'll show up with a box of smoke detectors and a pocket full of 9-volt batteries. So I've went into single-family homes that didn't have a working smoke detector when I started the inspection. By the time I left, they had the batteries replaced, maybe installed the smoke detectors. So that's technically listed as a past inspection. So if we go back and we're looking through the files to determine who would qualify for this, that's going to look like it's a past inspection, where really when we went in, there was a non-compliant house. With our inspections every 3 years, if we give this exemption, it would be actually a 6-year period between inspections for the city of Windom. I feel that that's too long to go in between inspections, just based on what I've seen. The cost of this, the time frame that's required from this, people are still a little bit annoyed with it, but it's not exhaustive to where it's really overburdening, I guess, in my opinion. So the first recommendation, and this is all went through the Planning Commission, would be to delete the entire section 150.56 I-4, and that talks about that situation where you'd be exempt from the inspection. They would still have to license their property, fill out a new application, so we know who's in charge, who's responsible, who we contact. This is just saying that they're exempt from the inspections. So that's the first part of this. The second part is the same code section 150.56 I-1 says that properties that are under state or federal inspections are exempt from the provisions of this chapter and from rental inspections by the city. That was wrote in. I don't really know what we had in mind with that, other than possibly like properties that are inspected by HUD. We have a few in town. There's a good chance that I just missed that and didn't realize which properties were licensed by somebody else or were under state or federal inspections. So we have done inspections at the Windom High Rise, at South Windom Apartments, and I think both of those actually should have been exempt from this under this chapter. After doing those inspections for a few years, I do know that we're looking for things that they don't. We're checking every unit, whereas they just check a kind of a percentage of the units, and if they're found to be compliant, then they don't go through the rest of them. I do know that what they're allowed to, and even with some care facilities, what those inspectors are allowed to, and even the fire marshal's office, if they go through buildings, what they're allowed to and what's enforceable to them doesn't necessarily cover what we can under our rental code. And a lot of times in some of these state licensed facilities, they're relying on the local jurisdiction to kind of cover all these other things, either a rental ordinance or a certificate of occupancy that states zoning and building code compliance. So since I have been inspecting those, and I think there is value in continuing to inspect those, because I do think we're looking at things that they're not, and I think sometimes their programs are kind of relying on a local doing their inspections to cover kind of what's not under their scope. So for that reason, we're proposing to delete 150.56I1. The addition is under the definitions of a rental unit. If we exempt I1, we thought maybe we should just expand what's not considered a rental unit. So we're going to expand the definition of rental housing unit to say that a rental unit does not include, it already says rest homes, convalescent homes, nursing homes. We're going to add institutional occupancies such as jails, penitentiaries, reformatories, or detention facilities. Dormitories and facilities licensed by the state as institutional occupancies, they would still be exempt from our code as they always have been. So that's the proposal that we have. The last section would be 150.57, that's license and inspection fees. Subpart D, that's pertaining directly to this exception that we were talking about previously. So if a property is exempt from the renewal inspections for alternating license periods, we were still going to charge them a minimum renewal fee just because we were still asking them to register their property and that. But if we're going to delete paragraph 4 under 150.56, then that section of our inspection fees would not be applicable anymore. The reason I'm bringing these forward is because these are really based on the last 5 years of inspections that I've done, and it's really my opinion based on that these sections be amended as we propose this evening. This would be a motion for first reading. We would come to the council for second reading, probably at your next meeting, and then once it's published, it would become effective. Questions, thoughts, concerns? I'm a little offended that Marv said that earlier presentation was the best one they've had, but I don't know.
Quick question, Andy, if you're going to these, excuse me, rental properties and the landlord's following you in, putting up all the stuff that's supposed to be put up, isn't that kind of a fail if they're ahead of you instead of behind you?
Yeah, it gets wrote in my notes that those things weren't there, and then I make a note that all items were corrected prior to leaving. If I would fail the inspection, there would be a time frame that they have to become compliant, is kind of how we do it, and then we would charge $50 for that reinspection. I guess in that case, there's no reason for a reinspection and that additional $50 fee because they've already complied. I view it as a fail because when I got there it failed, but when I left it passed, so the paperwork in the file looks like a pass.
Wouldn't that $50 fee tell them to do it ahead of time versus the time you're there?
Yeah, maybe. What I want is for it to be there. It should be there when I get there. If us going in and doing the inspection is what gets it there, then I guess we'll call that a win. Or I would consider that a win.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve this first reading of this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to approve the reading of the first ordinance of the 198 ordinance.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jim, on approving this first reading. And This is by resolution, isn't it, Steve? No? Oh, just a motion, okay. All in favor, say aye. Oppose the same sign?
Thank you.
Next item is Personnel Committee of the Liquor Store hiring.
John Nelson, Liquor Store Manager. I'm here today to recommend the City Council approve the hiring or transfer of Kathy Morphew from her current part-time union liquor store clerk and stockroom position to a full-time position. On March 5th, I met with the Personnel Committee to discuss the possibility of moving our current part-time union liquor store clerk and stockroom position to a full-time position. Personnel approved the change in position by a vote of 2-0. On March 7th, we followed union protocol by posting an internal job posting for 5 days. There was one transfer request put in, that was Kathy, who's currently in that part-time position. With that, my recommendation is to approve the hiring of Kathy Morphew as the full-time union liquor store clerk and stockroom position effective April 1st, which is the start of a pay period. Kathy will maintain her current wage, which is step 4 of the 2024 union wage schedule. Upon successful completion of a probationary period, a step increase will be awarded at her 6-month review and end of her probationary period. Her past work experience and work ethic that she has displayed since her initial hiring in January of 2020 shows she is an excellent candidate for this position. The potential financial impact is not budgeted, but it will be absorbed through some reduction in part-time wages, estimated to be $24,638. On the next page in your council pack is kind of a breakdown of that total. Kathy does plan to take single insurance, so that's where that number is. In future, different insurance costs could be shown there. So.
I would make a motion to approve the hiring of Kathy Morphew for the full-time union position.
And I would second.
Motion by Jenny, second by Marv. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next item is new business. Do we have any new business? No new business, okay. Old business, any old business? Okay, council comments. Jim, you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. Marv?
You better go find your snow shovel, sounds like.
Yeah.
It's supposed to snow in the next couple days.
Scott, you have anything?
Just if you look around Windom, there is changes happening in some of our infrastructure and some of our buildings. Take a look at it and see how things are going and be proud of what we got going on here. Thank you.
Jenny, you have?
I'd just like to thank again the Windom FFA kids that came in and presented. That was really good. You could tell they were really invested in that and did an excellent job. And then also with the snow thing, I mean, I blame all those people that were putting away their snow blowers and getting out their lawnmowers and tuning them up. Now we had a mild winter, and now I feel like the whole winter season is going to come in 3 or 4 days here this weekend. So watch the roads, watch the weather, travel plans, and make sure you get to our local stores and shop for things you need for the weekend. The Windom Liquor Store. Get your groceries, get everything that you need so that you don't hopefully have to travel if we do get this 11 to 13 whatever inches predicted.
Yes, I have nothing. Steve, do you have anything? Okay. I guess we shall adjourn.